I'd like to just take a couple minutes and talk about some of the issues related to school budgets and some of the discussions that are oftentimes held. In particular, the discussion questions that come up when you're looking at preparing the budget. Well, first of all, the local sources of revenue. If you're in a public school setting, you need to make sure where is the money coming from? What are the sources of revenue? Now, in the textbook, what you find is that they'll talk about the formula that each state has devised in terms of how they get their money. It's a combination of federal, state, and local jurisdiction. Each state is different, and you need to make sure that you understand clearly in your state how your school will get money. Local school board gets money from the state, the local county, and then it trickles down to the individual schools. So you also need to look at how people view schools. Oftentimes, especially in this day and age, people are very reluctant to raise taxes. However, taxes are the main source of revenue for most public schools. Now, in the private schools, our revenue mainly comes from tuition. We also have fundraising efforts, advancement issues that often help us to offset expenditures. But you need to make sure that you clearly understand where is the money coming from. Again, public school, it's a combination of state, federal, and local money. In the private schools, it's basically tuition and any fundraising efforts that go on in the school. Now, in terms of an integrated school budget, an integrated school budget is very simple. It means that it looks at the school's mission, philosophy, vision, and then builds upon that. An integrated budget really looks at the most effective and efficient way to use the funds that the schools are given. It also means that you need to look at the academic programs and the effectiveness of those programs and involve those people in that. Now, in terms of some of the myths, oftentimes people say in order to create a budget, you need to have some accounting background. You need to have some understanding of accounting. It doesn't mean you need to be a CPA. It means that you have to understand where the money comes from, where it goes out, and make sure that you as the principal of the school understand clearly your role in overseeing the budget. If you simply take a hands-off approach and say, oh, that's the business manager or the bookkeeper's responsibility, not really mine, then you're way off base. As a principal, you need to understand the effectiveness of your budget. The money that's being spent, is it being effectively utilized? Is it helping the academic endeavors of your school? And are your funds being spent in a manner consistent with your vision, your goals, and your philosophy of your school? Now, risk factors in terms of the fiduciary responsibilities. Too often, people abdicate that responsibility and say, oh no, that's the bookkeeper's responsibility. Over the years, I've run into way too many schools where the principal simply kept the distance from the day-to-day operations in the financial arena. And suddenly someone comes up and says, by the way, what happened to all this money? Too often, I've encountered schools that have come to me and said, what do we do now? We've had bingo or cookie sales for years, and suddenly we thought money was sitting in a bank account. It wasn't there. Someone walked off with it. I'd love to believe that everyone is honest and above board in every educational institution in this country. The reality is that's not the case. If you're the principal, you need to make sure that you understand where the money is being held, who's holding it, and where it goes from there. Again, I know one school where school had a cookie drive for probably about 12 years. Nobody really asked about it. The board never asked about it. Everybody just assumed. What they found out was, unfortunately, in this case, it was the principal who had decided that they were going to walk away with almost $250,000 in monies that should have gone to the students. That's a failure of the board, the superintendent, and all those involved for not really looking at what's going on. You as a principal, you have the fiduciary responsibility. One of my suggestions that I often tell schools is, what is your cash management situation? And we'll talk about that later in the semester. But if you allow people to take money out of the building, then you are basically setting yourself up for some serious financial problems. If someone's collecting money, there should be 2 signatures on the document, and it should be stored in your school. Do not allow money to be taken off property. Again, you need to make sure that you have the rules and regulations in place for not just the large expenditures where checks are written, but also for all petty cash and all cash that's held in your building or is collected in your name. If you want to destroy in a private school your fundraising endeavors, simply have people walk off with money from basketball, cookie drives, flower drives, whatever it would be. Then when you go to your donors and ask them to provide you with additional funding, I wouldn't be willing to give you the money. Now, when you look at the steps for your budget, one of the most important steps is involvement of the stakeholders. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go out and get everybody to agree to everything, but you need to make sure that you involve your teachers, your parents, at least to some degree with the budget. So many people often come to me and say, I don't really understand or even know what the budget for our school is. Not even in general terms. To me, that's a major mistake on the part of the administration. If you want people to support you, be honest, be transparent. Tell them what's going on, what monies you have coming in, and what monies you have going out. In our private schools, one of the issues that we have is the fact that tuition does not always cover the cost of education. You need to make sure people understand that in order to make things work the way they should, to accomplish the goals that your community has set out through a strategic plan, you need to make sure that your budget is set up, that everyone knows what's going on. That doesn't mean to say that you have to tell people that you're spending $50 on pencils or erasers. It means that you need to make sure that people understand this is what you're spending in the areas of instruction. In our Catholic schools, it's religious education, on athletics, on maintenance. All those things add up. With snowstorms throughout the United States over the last several months, people forget to realize that it costs money to clean sidewalks, to clean parking lots, and in some cases to make sure that the roof is secure and making sure that you get the snow off the roof. That all costs money. Make sure that your constituents, your parents, your alumni understand those are costs that were not originally budgeted. It also means that in your budget, you need to make sure that you have some form of a contingency to deal with major problems. Again, I hope these comments help and give you a framework as you start about to create your budget for your school and a financial plan for your school that will lead to a more effective and efficient use of the monies coming in. And at the end of the day, you can say to anyone, this is what we have to work with, and this is how we are being good stewards of the money we've been given. I hope these thoughts help. If you have any questions, as always, please feel free to email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I appreciate it, and have a good day.